Hello, and welcome to the Old Farm Bus Podcast. This is the Back of the Bus session.
Hello and welcome to the Old Farm Bus Back of the Bus Sessions podcast. Today I'm back with my mate Polarbear
Me again.
AKA Steven.
Sick of me now, right?
Mate, I'm not. I think we've got to change this podcast. It's not the Old Farm Bus Back of the Bus Sessions anymore. It could be the Polarcast. I love having these chats though, mate. Is this number 4?
It must be, yeah.
You are officially
The most podcasted podcast
the
person.
most podcasted podcast person.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
What's the most you've done on a podcast before? Did you used to do a show or?
No, I've been on a few, but I reckon there's probably a few more that I've been on 4 times. I reckon.
Really?
I don't think more than 4. A few chats with.
Okay, well,
Yeah, maybe.
we've got to top it then.
Yeah, maybe.
Have you been on the Distractions piece?
Yeah, a bunch of times.
Were you going to say Scroobius then?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
heard so have you been on it a few times?
Yeah.
Is he quite a mate of yours?
Yeah,
then?
yeah. Good friend.
Oh, awesome, man.
So I met him when first started. I think my first ever gig in London, he was there, and he had his suitcase full of hats, and he was doing his stuff. And it was in this really quite swanky wine bar, and we kind of just gravitated towards each other, going, right, we would never be in this situation if it weren't for what we were doing now. And he was like, oh yeah, you seem all right. Oh, you seem all right, cool. And then we started seeing each other around a bit.
Mate, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And
Good lad.
what episode do you think the first you're on? And then
I don't know.
do you think like in
quite early,
single digits?
I'm not sure, lad. I think it's one of them ones where normally when there's been, when I remember a couple of times he's come to me when I was doing a show and he'd come and talk about whatever show I was working on, or when something new had come out, or we used to get together, me, him, and Kay and a guy called Musa, and we'd have what we call Christmas drinks, and we just caught up and then sometimes and then started doing that online on the podcast.
Mate.
So everyone would be where they were with a little drink, and then we just chat it out and stuff.
Because this is a little something I feel envious of as a kid from a small town.
Yeah.
And you have to sort of reach out a lot and go to your cities.
Yeah.
It can be 40 minutes to Nottingham.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It's always travelling, and especially don't do it now.
Yeah.
But I didn't necessarily have a massive collective of people working.
That's definitely I mean, like I say, like I moved to London for someone, and then just coincided that's when I started doing stuff. But you could do a night every night of the week if you wanted to, and then bit by bit you started seeing certain people, and you started gravitating towards them, and you started running a night, helping run a night.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, it felt like a crew, a quote unquote scene or whatever. But
Did you feel that propelled you to do what you were doing?
I'm not sure about that, because at the same time we had a little baby, so I would very much go and do my thing and then I'd bounce. I wasn't like hanging out.
Yeah.
I never hung out. Like I never stuck around afterwards. I would just be going home. So it's like I was always in and out at the same time. But at that same token, people that you kind of clicked with, you just became friends with, and he was one of them.
But what are they sort of mates that be asking you about your projects and spurring you on and talking about creativity?
Yeah, I guess to a degree. Yeah, to a degree. And collaborating and maybe like thinking about writing stuff together and like trying to, a little bit. But it was so like, I was kind of in my own little world, because either they were a bit younger or they were the same age but nowhere near thinking about kids. So it's a very different kind of rhythm that I kind of had, Jeremy, especially in London, where, people are hopping around between parties or going to events every night of the week. I was hardly out. I'd go out and gig, but I never went out when I wasn't gigging. Like I never went to an event without.
Cause I don't want to do a woe is me. I
completely do. But it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing in that sense of like, you could feel it.
Yeah.
In the air, and if it wasn't like, okay, if I'm writing something now, I've got to wait till at night, which is in 2 weeks above the pub. I knew that if I wrote something in the day, I could find somewhere and go that night and do it. That does something to you for sure.
More me were thinking, I'd go out and then I'd stay out because I wanted to feel a part of something.
Yeah.
But everyone was it was the sesh then.
Okay,
and that's what you get caught up in. And it didn't feel right because I wanted to meet that crowd that were excited about doing cool things and creating things. Like,
it's interesting for some people how they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But for me, it was never that anyway. Like even when making music with mates, it was to avoid going out in town that we made music. So people would have a little smoke and stuff, and you'd play a little computer game or whatever it was. But the vibe was, no, we don't want to be with the masses, the hordes. So I've always swerved this quote unquote the sesh.
Yeah.
Purely because it's never been my thing. And then when the kids come, it felt it was even more alien to me what that was. When I was like, I'd just rather be at home, to be honest.
It was nice. I was watching a Scroobius Pip video recently.
Yeah.
And then in the back, you see example in it. Have you seen? I can't remember which video that was. And then I'm sure I've seen Plan B in another one. And
Yeah.
people that you know, and then you look back at this age now, and you go, "Oh, that was really nice."
For
They all
sure.
seem to be in.
But also as well,
something.
he as well. He has always done a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah.
And always like been on it. And like if he wants to do something, he just does it. Like even the podcast thing, it was way early before people. And like so like, and he just went and did it.
He was on Joe Rogan's.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It blew my mind.
No, but it's like one of the things where like he did it. They did a track with De La Soul.
Yeah.
So it's like it's that thing of
A doer.
completely a doer, but also like he's a good guy.
Yeah.
So it's one of them ones where it's
across.
just, do you know what I mean? So it's one of them ones where it's just like right, we text each other quite regularly, just little funny things, little jokes we've been having for ages. But also it's like one of them ones where it's just like right, if there's a serious question about something, we'll ask it. Like I remember he was thinking about the kind of scene or people being together. I remember when our little boy was 1, and the parcel turned up at our house, and I opened it up, and it was like a baby grow, but in like a tuxedo, and it was from my man.
Yeah.
And I hadn't told him my address. I must have mentioned the kid when the birthday was once maybe, and the passing, but he chose to like. And my mom was like, "Yeah, you're fine. I'm all right with you." And do you know what I mean? So like, and we've been on
100%.
tours together a bunch of times and things like, been to different places, and it's like, yeah, he's a good lad.
Have you been to other countries doing
Yeah.
it as well?
Yeah.
Yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been to America?
Yeah.
How do they receive the spoken word that we do?
I think it's fine. I mean, for me, I was always fine because a story's a story. I think like accents and stuff, and speaking too fast and mumbling a little bit, whatever. But I got asked to go over a couple times, and it's like, no, it's fine. The novelty of something becomes impressive. Like people have the image that in the States it was all like Nuyorican, like quite political. But there's as much as there is anywhere. There's always all sorts. Do you know what I mean? It's never just one thing. I think it's just people go, oh, okay, it's just all the same. All that American stuff is quite earnest and on the nose stuff. You're like, no, it's not. Some of it's earnest, some of it's on the nose, but some you get that stuff here as well. So it's like all over, man. Australia, like around Europe. It's like if you do your thing and people believe you, then it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's like, right, and then how much you want to invest and love it or analyze it after that, that's fine. But just in itself, if you're telling the truth, your truth, no one can really knock you.
And he's stopped performing now, hasn't he? Really, I've tried to get him down here once to do a gig and whatnot. But
No, he don't. Yeah, he's acting and doing the podcasting now, and I think he likes to like when he's doing a thing. I'm doing this.
And have you two ever spoken of that before? Because we spoke on the last podcast about your sort of light for that diminishing slightly.
Yeah, all the time. All the time, talked a lot. But he's like, he's the thing where they were gigging so much. Like it was funny. We were having a conversation once, and he talked about how he'd done him and Dan. Remember Dan the Sap?
Yeah.
They'd done like 300 and something gigs in a year.
Oh my god!
Right, and we worked out that at that point I'd been performing for like 4 or 5 years. I hadn't done 300 gigs in my life.
Wow.
But because of YouTube, people assume you've done more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like when they had and they did it, and they built a fan base, and they built a thing, and they did it all on purpose, and it worked, and they got to a point where and then it was, I think, it was like, well, okay, I feel like I've done what this is now. I'm interested in this. It's not like poo-pooing it, undermining it. But I think he still gets like regularly people getting annoyed with him. Like, why aren't you doing stuff? Why aren't you going? He's like, I've told you why.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing it. Leave me alone.
Because he did a funny post like
to
gigging, and everyone got in touch, but he put something where it proved that people didn't read posts properly. Because then he put like only joking, da.
See, he's got the time. See, and he's also, bless him, like he's got his mind is. If we went to war, I'd go and chill with him because he's got his brain is. Do you know what I mean? He's like he can think about. I wouldn't play him at Monopoly or Risk or anything. Right?
Yeah.
He's like it's
devious.
Like, well, he's just smart. He's smart and he's savvy, and he's. I mean, he's not from a lot, so it's that thing of like, right, if I get to a position now where if I can stay grounded and know that I can, at these different times I've been around stuff, I've been, I've got famous friends or I do all this stuff, but I'll text you and we'll get a Pizza Hut as well. It's just cool, isn't it? So it's like, I think,
love it.
So it's like and he was, last time I saw him, he was doing lots of audition tapes and really enjoying it. And I think, if you just do what you want, man. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's a good segue to where we were getting to as well, because
nice.
I'm very good at this, mate. He ended up going down the acting route, which he really enjoys and stuff. You've gone more down the education and teaching route. Is that correct? Really? Would you say?
Well,
I mean,
it was always there. I think it was more so that when you start doing less being on stage, whatever else you were doing maybe gets to fill up more time. It was always my favourite part of it all.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Yeah, I would
really.
have always. The performance felt to me like a way of justifying why I was allowed to be in rooms.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or that, I've never like sold myself. Like teachers would be at festivals, or they would see me do something and go, "Do you want to come to my school?"
Love that.
So word of mouth, and that's cool. But then the reason I started doing it is because the things that I was writing were longer or more collaborative, and enjoying that. I wasn't writing short pieces, and I didn't want to get up and just say the old ones again and again and again. And I did that a few times, and it didn't feel kind of right, so I just stopped doing it. And then, when I go up now, I'll do a mix of some of the old stuff, whatever's new flying around in my head, or a little bit from the books, and it feels less of
contrived. Or...
Yeah. I think that's probably the right way to say it. It's but yeah, like I say, even then, being in a room making stuff up, or being, you get up on stage and like someone's there, and I don't know, their younger brother's there or something, and he's there with his mates, and they want to ask questions about I'm writing stuff. Would you want to hear this? Can I rap for you? That was always way more fun.
Yeah,
than being on stage. So it's taken.
It's in the moment.
Well, I've just centered it. It's just at the center. So everything else comes from that for me now. So if you ask me what to do, I'd say like storyteller, I'd stay writer, but I wouldn't write performer down now first. But I'll perform if I feel to or I need to.
But did it feel like a compelling and gravitational pull to go into those schools? Was there something about you that felt, education, when you went into the first school? And I remember, I think we've had a bit of this chat before, but I'd like to hear the journey into it. And
do you want the truth? The honest truth is I don't know. Right? Yeah. I know that from the beginning it felt good. It also felt like there was something in it that felt like a purpose that I could get behind. And maybe a little bit of it is to do with the fact that I believe in nothing before its time. Right? I genuinely believe that. And I've always been a late bloomer. But I mean, like, if I'd have known that people from where I'm from, like me, got to make stuff, I would have had to go a little bit, or I wouldn't have hid it as much as I was hiding it when I was at school. Do you know what I mean? I had no frame of reference, so it's like, and I'm sure a part of it is for me going, you know what? If I come and do stuff, my whole flex is not everyone wants to do it, but you're allowed to. Yeah. So if there's even a little bit of it, like, boom, you're going to leave with the volume turned up on that. That's a rush for me. Do you know what I mean? Like sparking that, and like that might sound quite pious or like a little bit kind of evangelical or whatever. I don't really care at this point because it's the truth. So it's like, right. So there's definitely an element of that, and I guess I felt that early on, but didn't know what to call it, or didn't feel like a little bit like I'm not allowed to say I'm making changes or I'm making people feel good. I just like making people feel good. Yeah. And that, whether that's me, you come into my house and me cooking for you, or it's me like we're in a room, I'm going to make you feel good about your ideas. And it just so happens that when you have ideas or you share them, I genuinely get hyped. It excites me. It excites me, the fact that we can conceive things that didn't exist, and together we can do it. That genuinely gets me going. It's my happy place.
Is there anything about the youth, though, element, or just people?
Do you want the truth?
Yeah.
There is definitely something about the youth, but only in so much as they're not adults. Not because they're kids. There's just less bullshit. Yeah. In my experience, at least. Or less of bullshit that is... There's still bullshit, obviously. But there's...
masked or a facade.
It's just... Adults are less interesting to me. Yeah. Right? Purely because... That's a sweeping statement as well. Because I love working with anybody. But what I find is that the front that people have had to build up to reach adulthood and be... Maybe. And like that kind of... That sense of like, what's it for? Or that kind of stuff. The fact that if I walk into a room of adults and say, what do you do for a living? I say, I play. Yeah. At least half of them are going to kind of at least go,
turn
as
off,
if it's some kind of naive thing, or like play means young. So my play's done now, I'm working. It's not real work though, is it? And he's like, well, it might be real work, mate, because I've travelled the world and I earn a living from doing this. So, and also the fact
the art of living.
The fact that you don't think it is means for a little bit of time would have annoyed me. But now I'm like, okay, well, it's all right, I won't waste your time,
Yeah.
and you're not going to waste my time.
And he showcases their philosophy,
Do you know what I mean?
psychology a little bit.
Yeah.
There.
But then put me in a room with your 15-year-old son and his mates,
Yeah.
and they might think differently, or at least I love the idea of people thinking, like places that I'm from, where like the kind of place that I'm from, where people don't believe that our ideas are valid, or that they are ideas even, or like we are creative. People don't resistant to call themselves creative or whatever. It's just like all the inspiration, the biggest inspiration for all my work isn't other art. It's the people and the places and what I'm from, right? So it's like, right, if I can be in a room and charge that up, then it's the best feeling in the world. So it's like, yeah, it was always there. But I knew early on that it wasn't like, for some people, the workshops were like bread and butter, and then just to give me enough money to fuel my art. I knew early on that the two weren't separate things for me.
I hear you. Yeah, I love
You know?
that. So, while doing all the work you've been doing, how long in education now?
How long have I been going into schools?
I'd
say since 2005.
Wow.
What's that?
Granddaddy.
18 years.
Wow, beautiful. Was there a point, because we've done
That's mad,
projects?
isn't it? That's
Yeah,
mad. That's full like
I had
birth
to take a
sixth
moment
form.
now. I'll put a
Oh,
snippet
days.
in with it. It's the SpongeBob where it goes 12 seconds
Yeah,
later.
wicked. It just aged me as well, mate.
But going into education
Mm-hmm.
and schools for that long, we've done projects together. We did the Pupil Voice project,
Mm-hmm.
where we're extracting sort of, how do you want education to be? How could you see it changing? Where is it missing? Where do you get out of it?
Yeah.
Was there a point in your story where you thought, I don't just want to go and workshop and have great days with people and create great vibes, but I want to see if I can actively help change that system or help educators in that system? Because just say your sessions are incredible. Like, I've not seen, and I know you don't like that thing, but I love that inclusivity that you managed to create, and I've tried to articulate it to so many people and so many teachers, and I've seen other educators that I really hype up as well, that I've gone, that was just another level, and it's the person they are, and then they've just been slightly imaginative, changed the dynamic, and still brought a curriculum to the kids by just doing their themselves. But I was just wondering, if you actively seek to change education or seek to bring
to a degree. I mean, like, you know, where it's possible. So much of it is about the relationships and the context of the school, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you can have an amazing teacher who is really excited about bending the rules or like trying to reach their students in a way that the traditional curriculum wouldn't seem like it would be able to do, or they want to play with it, but then their management and the people they have to answer to can constrain them completely, which is more and more. I've seen that change even more so over the 18 years that I've been doing it. In terms of limitation, in terms of like schools being places of control and behaviour management first.
Michael Gove, are we putting it on?
Well, no, I mean you can't do that. You it could be anyone, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, dickhead's a dickhead, isn't it? So it's like I think it's that thing of my whole thing is, I remember from early on getting really frustrated with one-dayers, like coming in to do a workshop and then bouncing. That was massively unfulfilling really early for me, because it was like, right, okay, well, that makes, brilliant, the clown came in for 2 hours or whatever and we did a thing, and that's cool and it has a value, but it's like, right, so I would be trying to be in dialogue and spend as much time with the teachers or the staff as much as possible. But it's hard, man. It's hard being a teacher. It's hard. I think it's hard being a teacher and aware of the system and feeling that the system is flawed and still having to exist in it. It's solid. It's really, really solid. And I think it gets harder the older the kids get, without wanting to, like, you know, say one is easier than the other. But there's something about, by the time you get to secondary, the expectations of what you're working towards.
And I think their awareness starts to grow.
Completely, mate. Completely.
How disillusioned
Yeah,
it is.
exactly. That's the right word, I think. And it's like, right, in my experience, the teachers that like do the best job in this current situation are the ones that are honest about that we're in it together. It's like, look, I know this is limited. Maybe not directly verbal, but like what I'm communicating through my energy and the way I am is like, look, I know this is not the best situation, but we're working towards this. If we're in this together, we can get you to a point where my job is to get you as close to this mark as possible, right? To give you the best chance to go on to the next stage, what it is. Come on. But the fact that there is that kind of siege mentality, it's a shame. And it starts early, it's starting earlier and earlier in terms of SATs and whatever else is. But it's just I think that my thing is, there was a chunk of time where I'm reading my pedagogy of the oppressed, and I'm reading loads like Paulo Freire. I'm reading all this philosophy stuff about like I want to abolish the school system, whatever else. And then I come through that and go, look, it's there. And while I'm thinking about what it is, there's a generation, 2 generations, 3 generations going through this system. What can we do in there now? Yeah. And to my mind, it just becomes about energy. It becomes about a vibe. It's like so I use story in every session because I'm convinced that story is the best way to learn anything. I'm convinced that if we're in maths, this is not rocket science now. But you know what I mean? Like we're in maths. If we can relate whatever we're learning to real life via a character or story or our own lives, it's going to stick in more. But also it's going to have more value because it's going to feel applicable. I'm going to anything though, any science. And the tricky thing is when you try and have a generalized curriculum where everyone's learning the same thing so they can be tested from it, not everything's going to apply to everybody's life. And in my school that I went to, 30 kids in a room, 10 of them are trouble. The other 20, 10 of them are like drifting off. 10 of them are trying. But like that's just a nightmare situation, right? So basically, the 10 who are trouble take the most attention.
Yeah. And
then so you've got a situation where you're just managing it and you're just getting through a day, and everyone's just getting through a day. You remember it? You're feeling right.
Mate, I
you get home and you drop your bag like you've been at work.
Yeah.
And it's like that's what school was. It's a job. And you're like, right, okay, cool. So what is it that you do when you kind of go in? I basically just try and give a little bit of energy and maybe a slightly different perspective on what it is you're trying to do, or a different way to do it. Specifically, usually via English or like language stuff, where it's like, right, here's my messy way of doing something. That like, right, if you got to write a piece of description, or you've got some homework or this, or you've sat in an exam, build this character in a couple of minutes, and there's something about that might make it easy for you to kind of get in and do it. Do you know what I mean? Alongside that, ongoing dialogues like the conference thing that we're part of, trying to get that dialogue going about how you can kind of change things and make things more in tune with where the world is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm more and more involved. A long time I would have swerved all the academic stuff for, my own imposter syndrome stuff. But now I'm like, no, actually, but I've been doing this 18 years. I have something to contribute to the conversation. I don't know everything, but I know that if you pair me up with a teacher who has the energy and the openness and to want to experiment with some stuff, every project I've ever done has been beneficial in a way that we could measure in terms of attainment, if you want, the boring way. Yeah. Or you can come and catch a vibe in the room and feel what that's doing. Or in a case study way, such and such who never speaks is now asking questions. Yeah, yeah. Every single time. It's the most cliche stuff in the world, right? But I guess what I'm really excited by doing now, this site that I'm building, I was telling you about, is that thing of, I just want it to be a resource. It's almost like a reassurance thing where I meet so many teachers who wouldn't consider themselves creative or don't go, okay, I'm the teacher, you're the artist. And if that's, some people want that demarcation, they want to be just, I'm the teacher. But to me, it's the most creative job in the world. I've got to navigate 30 people in a room, possibly trying to convey the same thing to 30 different minds, hold your attention, roll with whatever comes up. Then the bell goes, another 30 come in, I've got to do it again. Yeah, man. What the hell are you talking about? How are you not?
Exhausted.
And I'm not going to tell you what you are, but you're bloody creative. You are. And it's like, right, we're not so different. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so what has been...
Sorry, that was a big ramble, man.
Mate, I love your ramblings because I can play with it all day long and try and sneak in. So in terms of you going in, delivering sessions, first of all, it's like a one-off and you weren't feeling that energy because it's like the clown's been in, done that. Yeah. Then you go and do project-based stuff. Yeah. What's your thoughts on behaviour management style thing? When you're going in then and you've got this passion, you've got this energy, but it's not slapped and it's not working, have you had lonely drives home, or do you have an idea now about yourself where it's like, I've just gone and done my best, and you try and take the wins away from that day?
I'm going to say this without... It's never gone badly. right? It's never gone, quote unquote, a failure in the sense of because inherent in it, for me at least, I'm going into a room and it's responsive. So I'm at a point now where, and have been for a while, where I know what I love to do.
Yeah.
And I know that what I love to do is quite fluid. And if I get a sense of what you want, if I do a couple of little exercises or I start making some stuff up, I trust myself to read a room and get some stuff out of the people who are really keen to contribute.
Yeah.
Sow some seeds for people who are less eager to contribute or might want to figure it out. But all I'm really kind of conveying and kind of communicating to you is I love what this is. And what that means is it's kind of like, that's infectious. But even if it's not your thing at all, I'm not asking anything. I'm not doing this for you. Right? So, and there's something that sounds like it's selfish, but it's really, really honest. So the worst ways, in my experience anyway, maybe I could be completely blinkered and someone else might have gone, that went really bad, Stephen. But like, worst ways, you're going to leave it going, bloody hell, he likes his job.
Is that what you feel education's slightly missing then? Is we're trying to get numbers and stats out of kids, so we need everyone to be playing their part and be on board.
Yeah.
And because the teacher is forced into that and needs that out of the kids, it's not just an individual going, I love this, I'm passionate about this is what I want to give.
Yeah.
If you're on, you're on. If you're off, you're off. But I'm sure we'll get you around soon.
Yeah.
But they can't play that game.
No, of course though. And it's like, it's easy for me to say, isn't it? Because even when I'm doing a project or I'm in like all day for a couple of weeks, or I'm in residency and I'm back every day, the same day every week, I'm not there every day all week. The relationship between students and me is very different to a student and a teacher. It's like kid and a parent and kid and a cool uncle. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I love you, but like he's come in. And he's just got, just the fact that I come from outside gives me a bonus kind of factor to it.
Would you feel schools would benefit if the cool uncle was at the top of the head of
I think it's,
position?
I mean, there are utopian versions and visions of all these things to kind of see. But I think that there are things that are hard, but that would be beneficial in my opinion. I think if teachers were given license to bring themselves to a room.
Because that's what the cool uncle could be like. If the teacher goes, I've not caught him at all today, just say, don't worry, you'll catch him next time.
You ask any teacher, and some teachers don't want to do it. Some teachers want, because boundaries and health and safety and safeguarding regulations, it's a real thing, right?
Yes, yeah.
And real concerns. But I mean, like, if you share something that you're into, or there's at one time people were just playing tracks while we were doing revision, or at the end of the day when a couple of people got to choose what went on YouTube, and I chose this one track and I played this Fleetwood Mac song, and everyone's like, what the hell is this? Right? But then later on, that one kid remembered that I was into Fleetwood Mac. And like, you're into this, sir? And they mentioned that connection is beneficial across the board, in my opinion. Across the board, sorry. Like, it's like, if I am connected to a person, I believe I am less likely to disengage and try and mess you up. Whereas if I get nothing, right, other than the role of teacher and and forever you telling me I'm doing this is for your benefit, it's not for me. I'm doing it right. All that, the fact that you're here, but not for yourself, makes part of me not fully trust you or think or not respect you in that way. And then, best ways, I'm going to just kind of zone out. Worst ways, I'm actively going to come for you and try and sabotage it.
Yeah.
Because you see that all the time, right? And I remember without wanting to, we did it.
Yeah.
We did that in school.
I had a horrendous experience of school and education. I got kicked out of my primary school.
Yeah.
So for a year I had to just work on the farm as a year 6.
At the end of primary as well.
Yeah. And then, so kicked out of, it was a Christian primary school that I went to. I'm sure it was religious anyway of some aspect.
My Catholic mine was a Catholic junior school as well.
Yeah. But I remember, I got horrendously bullied because I used to live at my grandma's a lot. And I just had Marmite sandwiches and play Xbox. I was really good at Bubble Burst, they call it.
Yeah.
Do you know? Yeah.
Bust a Move.
Bust a Move, that's it.
Dude, it's a game. I've got it.
Bust a Move.
I've got it on the PlayStation.
I was so good at that. And Tekken.
Yeah.
But I got really fat from that. Just Marmite sandwiches all the time. And my granddad, who's an ex-Marine, give me some advice one day. It's like, if you don't like what they're telling you, you get this as hard as you can, you plonk them on the nose.
Oh, granddad.
And the problem is it worked. It worked really well. So I do that all the time.
Yeah.
And I remember the head teacher once went way too far with me. And I could see it in her eyes, and that's where I think she went, right, you're out.
Yeah.
Because she'd gone too far.
Yeah.
Like, she grabbed me
Yeah.
and pushed me against a wall, and then was up to my face, like, that close,
Yeah.
and I was spitting in my face, screaming.
But you were knocking
And
kids
I
out
was
at
like,
this point.
yeah, I was punching people that called me fat. They come up to me, get me to chase them, but if I caught them, then I'd give them.
Oh, mate, it's so sad.
But I got asked to leave that one. Ended up working on here, and then I went back into secondary school, and again, I think I got up to year 9, 10. Then I'm coming and working on the farm again.
Yeah.
There was a point in there. I've told this story once on the podcast, but I was in year 9, and the head teacher had a final meeting.
Yeah.
I know it was a final because my mum came in for it.
And this was because of fighting.
No, I was just reckless as a kid. I really didn't see my position in there. The only thing I knew about myself was I'm dyslexic, so I was in the bottom set for everything.
Yeah.
And I was hating my time there. And then my sister, who's 5 years older but has a different second name, she's Mullen Rose. And my granddad immigrated from Persia and was like the town doctor. So the Mullen Roses were quite highly regarded in the town area.
Okay.
Whereas Markham, Birmingham, that's where my dad's side are all from. So, yes, power to the Markhams. But I went in, and the head teacher's in there, who was an ex-Marine, and my mum and him are screaming at each other because she'd never been into school. She was like, let the kids do that. I'm busy with the farm, doing all that thing. I don't touch school. They can go and learn themselves. But he was sort of, he can't read, he can't write, he can't spell. What are you doing at home? And then she's putting the onus on him. He comes here to do all that. What's the point? But then he shouted at my mum. He went, Mrs. Markham, what are we going to do about your boy? And my mum, and really proud of her second name, Mullen Rose, like my sister, who's at the same school, just went, I am not a Markham.
Yeah.
I'm a Mullen Rose. And then the head teacher, all the energy in the room just calmed.
Yeah.
And he went, are you Beth's mum?
No way.
And then my mum really proudly kind of looks up and she's like, yeah, I'm Beth's mum, that's me.
The power
And
of a name,
he
lad.
looked at me, and he looked at my mum and went, you must be so disappointed in Michael.
Oi.
And I remember I just went this big. Everything cracked inside.
How old were you
I was
then?
in year 9. Yeah,
so you were 14 at least.
Yeah, year 9, 14. So I remember, and again, in his weird way, he may have thought, oh, this will spur him on, this will get him ready to go and be like his sister and achieve.
No, because he wasn't talking to you, he was talking to her.
100%. So, yeah, just to acknowledge, she fit the system and she understood what education was. I was completely the other. So he broke me in that moment. And that's what I always felt education was to me. And struggling to go back in to teach because I thought, no, it's not for me. But I've had so many wonderful experiences where I've met mini-me's and I've managed to reach through and speak to them on a level saying, well, it's for everyone really, man. We can do this. There's something there. It's just passion. That's what you need.
Yeah.
I just believe being passion fueled can take you on your path. But that was my experience of education. What I still see it is now is tailored for some and not for others.
Yeah.
So how do we open it up? How do we make it more like a session of yours where it is inclusive and is everybody on board? Is it possible?
Well, it's such a box of snakes, isn't it?
And that was my ramblings.
No, it's good, lad. It's good. That's a really sad story as well. Could we just acknowledge the fact that that's pretty intense, mate? And that's like, well, that's trauma. That's full on. Yeah, that is, mate. And that's set in a particular setting, and it's like, it's a whole box of snakes, isn't it? And like, it's the idea. It's not. We've got to work together. All right, I think you've got to foster more of a kind of collaborative feel between, and it's not just a matter of asking students questions or asking the teachers or asking artists or whatever. It's trial and error. Yeah. But the problem is within that, there are systemic pressures and rules that, like, not only are they kind of enforced, but they're changing and becoming more restrictive. So no matter what you want to do, if the latest government legislation comes in and says we're doing this, or like, we're going to try and drop soft degree subjects and everyone's going to try and do this, if they're taking away the options from you, it can feel like a hopeless and thankless task, right? And it already does. Dude, teachers are striking on a regular basis, right? And they're not really being listened to.
Yeah.
So it's like, right, we could talk about it all day. We could get a bunch of teachers in here and artists. We could talk about it all day. Have great, but it almost doesn't matter because if the rules are being passed down, that it's out of our control anyway. So I think that, and that's not to try and sound hopeless, but I think it's in the immediate sense. Maybe it's about this idea of small mercies, in the sense of it's like, right, you do what you can, but then you kind of try and foster this sense of energy, of excitement, and it's exhausting, lad. It must be so exhausting to like feel like you could feel like you run a lesson and you know that you've got stuff out of these pupils that you haven't got before, but this lesson was observed, and because the tick sheet of the observation of this lesson didn't meet all the criteria that it had to meet, it gets like an average marking of a lesson, or it's a decent, but you know it was the best lesson they've had all year.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you navigate that? And the answer is, I don't know. As somebody who's not a teacher, as somebody who's been in schools and been close to teachers my whole life, my mum took early retirement because teaching had changed so much. She was a primary school teacher, and she was like, nah. And my mum loved it, mate. Like, genuinely, she would leave before we got up. We wouldn't see her in the morning, and she'd get back near bedtime. She loved it.
Yeah.
And she jacked it in. She took a pension cut.
It was a
less
lifestyle
money,
for her,
less money, because she couldn't be in the restrictions and the answer and the kind of the jobs worth. She'd always kind of talk about it. It's just like, right, the individuality being taken away, her own choices and her own style or your voice.
Jobs worth.
Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like, and
yeah.
it's like it's not almost. It's not. I don't want to sound like I'm copping out. It's not for me to say what you do and what you can't do. What I do think is important is that there is stuff that creative practitioners have in their arsenal and have in their energy and their experience that can be useful to teachers, and vice versa. If we're going into educational settings, teachers are the most useful source of information to us. So I think there should be more of an onus on the collaboration between teachers and artists, and wherever that's possible, because the arts are being removed and dramas. So I mean, again, it's hard to talk about it without getting full doomsday, because it feels like a losing battle, and that's from someone who's not even in it day to day to day to day.
But you've been in the industry for that 18 years.
Yeah.
Do you see it as the most sort of tight part of its sort of, is it crescendoed at the minute? Is it in a real different place than you've ever seen it?
Yeah, completely. And as well, on the back of having 2 years sucked out of it for everybody.
Yeah.
Right? And kids in school now literally looking around going, we did this from home. Why are we here? What are you talking about? Like, what?
Yeah.
You want me to sit here now when at home I could do it in 20 minutes and then do what I wanted? This makes no sense to any of us.
This happened to a lot of business, didn't it?
Of course, mate.
Yeah.
And like, you go, right, okay. No, but then what is it that we can get in the room that we can't get via Zoom? It's that interaction, it's that firing, it's that whatever. And the reason I still get as excited by going in as I ever have is because I know that one comment or that one idea shared or that thing that we come up with together in a room, that genuine collaboration of an idea, that can be a memory for the rest of your life. You can use that for the rest of your life. And it's like, right, I do that all the time. So I love my job. Right, and it's like, right, boom, you're not going to be a writer, Dan. I know you're not. You don't want to be. But trust me, if you can articulate your ideas and your thoughts and your feelings, that's going to be beneficial to you.
Big skill set.
And I'm not saying that to you. I'm just doing it, knowing that if at any point in this day you say something, you get a response where it's like, oh, I was heard. Something I conceived of, whether it was aliens or whether it was like a genuine emotion, that was heard. I know what that does to you, because that's what I do all the time. That's why I love my job, because I get to be heard and I get to share that. So it's like, that's useful.
That's why I felt very lied to in education, because I was told I couldn't even go to my English lessons. They wouldn't let me in it. But then when I realised it was getting a piece of me on a piece of paper and telling my story, it was the most cathartic and beautiful experience I've ever been through.
Yeah.
I felt completely let down and lied to. I was like, why haven't they taught me how to articulate? Because a lot of where my punching came from and frustrations was because I didn't know how to explain what I was going through and what I was feeling.
Yeah.
And when I give myself some space and time, and because it meant something to me to get it on paper, I got to sort of calm that part of myself. So it's so beneficial.
No, completely. And it's also, and in people's defences, it's like, right, it's such a roulette wheel, right? Because when you've got a class full,
I'm with you.
it's not just like you weren't giving off that same energy every day. So it weren't like I've got all these other people to deal with, but on a given day, I might have tried and it just wasn't going for whatever reason because it was just a shit day or something.
I still put it on the system slightly because our school was that archetype.
Oh yeah, system for sure.
I was putting it on. Do you know the Harry Potter? I think it's number 6 where Umbridge comes.
I don't know.
You don't do the Harry Potter. Wow,
I've never have done. Sorry,
Umbridge comes in, and it's that very stereotypical authoritarian leadership style she implements. And we had that in our school. I remember there was one teacher came in called Mr. Griffiths.
Yeah.
And at the start of every lesson, there's a new song playing. Everyone just came in, and it would be Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
And then he'd tell you about, his kid died, and he wrote this song, and and I was going, oh, mate,
yeah,
I'm in. And then he'd perform the book, and when I say perform, I mean it'd be every character, it'd be involved, and we're all involved. We're the bottom set boys, so there's 8 of us.
Yeah,
but we're just loving him.
Yeah,
and I had that for 3 months, and he'd gone finito because he didn't fit that description of what they wanted and what the system needed. So then they put me in a class where it was all back to being a bollocking and stuff, and terrified to go in it so we wouldn't.
Yeah. Well, there's so much. There are so many personalities. There are so many minds. There's so many people in a school building, right?
Yeah.
It's almost the idea of some sort of uniform way of it being successful or inclusive is kind of maybe.
Yeah, we were letting that school down.
Maybe even a pipe dream, because it's like, right, you could have a teacher like that who like for your group who are feeling it, and then you could do it in another class. And before you know it, you got 4 parents coming in and going, "What are you doing?
Yeah,
some sort of Mickey Mouse thing. You better teach my kid how to get an A star because I've got big plans for this kid." And it's like, right, there's no answer. Like, there's no definitive answer. But I do think there could be more shared and more played with in terms of what the rules are and how ways to do it. And I think that what it does seem to me at the minute is, it's very much like kind of like there's the way to do it.
Yeah.
And if you can't do it that way, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
I'll help you. I'll boost you up to the bare minimum by bending the rules as much as I can, but we're still doing it that same way. And I think my problem with that is not even that it doesn't get results. It's just that when you get out the other side, it doesn't make any sense because it's not what the world is, lad.
No, especially
do you know
now,
what I mean?
Wherever we're
Dude,
spinning to. Yeah.
I genuinely believe this is true, and this sounds like a cliche now, but like my school didn't have a sixth form. I'm so grateful my school didn't have a sixth form, because I got to go to a sixth form campus, which was separate, which was you wear your own clothes. The autonomy that it gave me, I felt like I woke up in sixth form, because it felt like I was making choices for myself, that I was like, right, I was still struggling with academia in terms of like, right, being focused about enough stuff, because there wasn't any real discussion still. I felt like I just felt as much time as I was in secondary school, I spent the same amount of time when I got out of secondary school unlearning what I'd learned. And that was basically...
Unlearning.
Do you know what I mean? It's just basically that sense of like, right, you weren't supposed to ask why, right? You weren't supposed to question it. And so I spent a bunch of time coasting, but not feeling like I could even question what I was doing or why, because I didn't have a plan. So it's that thing of like, right, I'm kind of lost. And you're like, but oh yeah, I don't know, it's probably my fault, because you don't question. People end up where they're supposed to end up, right? Yeah. Hard work gets you here. This guy's a millionaire because I'm like, well, what am I then? What am I then? I haven't got a clue what I'm doing. I don't feel like I've learnt anything other than how to avoid people and like pretend to be into stuff or pretend to be okay at this. There wasn't the license to find anything yourself. I did that outside of school. So it felt like a job that I didn't apply for, that I didn't want to stay in. And when I came out of it, I was like, man, I feel like that was just a waste of time.
It was unlearning that sense of it's all in prep for something.
Yeah.
I remember just thinking, this is all to get this piece of paper at the end of it.
Yeah.
There wasn't a sense of all these wholesome attributes and skills throughout, and enjoying the dance and the journey of it, and friends and friendship and all those parts that could have had some onus on it. It was all in prep and all pushing forward. I really had to learn that outside of school.
It doesn't, with being really reductive and simplistic, overly so probably, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
at this
I
point
like
in time.
being reductive.
In 2023, lad, and for a long time before 2023, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever why we're here. Right, if you want to be really, really like on the nose, reductive and overly simplistic, it's childcare. You're in school, so your parents can earn.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
And you're like, right, shit.
Cohesive.
Do you know what I mean? Right? And you go, okay, right, okay, that's not useful Stephen, it's not useful to think about. It's not so. What do we do with what is there? And you go, okay, right. You look at what you're trying to achieve, and you try and make the way in which you get to these things you're trying to achieve at the end of the term, or the end of the course, or the end of the day, or the end of the lesson, as varied as possible within that time frame that you have, so that more than one type of brain has a chance to get to this point. And what I think is, when you do that as a byproduct, you spark conversations and dialogues and support and energy and connections between people in a room that are beneficial for everyone. Because the more we feel like we are a team, do you know what I mean? Ideally, what I ideally think that a lesson should be, right, okay, we're doing what we're doing, Vikings, Wicked. Right, Vikings, it's now 9:05, right? 10 to 10, we're presenting, go. Use whatever you're using. Use a book, use your tablet, use your phone, use your computer. Right, everyone's presenting at 10 to, though. How are you going to present? Okay, you know what? It's got to be 22 because there's so many of us, right?
I think this is they use that in Canada.
They use it a lot in schools that have got more money, more resources, less students, and more. It's already kind of groomed into, you're going to be fine anyway, right? Amazing places use it still in some like if you go.
So you've seen that in the UK often?
No, I've seen a version of it in very well-to-do.
I hear you.
Private schools.
Yeah, I mean,
Australia it happens a lot.
Something I know
in New Zealand,
Canada is whoever's teaching the class builds the curriculum and then gives each person the way at the end of the year how they're going to produce that material and showcase it. Yeah, which just makes total sense.
No,
You're
completely.
going into the individual.
Even simpler, right? And this is going to sound to anyone who's like a teacher every day. They're going to be like, you're living on cloud cuckoo land, right? Okay. But I'm going to say it anyway. Even if your lesson was 50 minutes, right, and you went, you know what, we're gonna teach for 45, or no, we're going to teach for 40 minutes. 10 minutes is going to be us talking about what it is we've just done. And you go, yeah, but you talk during. You don't. You set people different tasks. The ones who are high flying get the extension tasks, and they're getting on with it. The ones who need the most help, you're spending time with them to get them to the base level, right? If we could have a 5-minute chat, and there was talk at the end, so anyone who could ask something, you wouldn't feel stupid in a room for asking a question. Somebody else could answer it.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, you've got this sense of it's not just you sat next to strangers or your best mate doing this. It's like, right, we're trying to do it
collectively.
And I'm recognizing that you find this harder than I find this, and I'm trying to help.
So it's similar, my mate Martin Illingworth that I go into schools with. Love that guy. He's the local celebrity in these areas. I think he was in a school for 26 years. And then went into like teaching teachers, but he's just got such a good approach. And again, he would go and say, we're doing World War II. He'd have them all sat round, but they sort of went, sir, I've heard about trench foot. Like the lads would go down there. What's that? I don't know. Go find out that. Oh, sir, how did they stay happy when they're in the trenches? I don't know. Go and
so that was him in the classroom as well.
Yeah, and I think that is possible, even though you've got this curriculum and thing to hear. If teachers felt they were empowered and they had that ability to do that, it is possible. But you've just got to be courageous and daring it.
Completely, and I think it must go on everywhere. But I think more so than ever now, it's even more hardcore than that. If you're in a school that is, struggling economically and socially in terms of behaviour, you are genuinely fearful in a room as well. This could kick off at any point. And it's like the idea of even trying to think about teaching anything in a space where I'm literally just making people not throw a chair or not call somebody else and wait to get thrown out, and then the whole lesson's gone because I've now got to escort that person out onto isolation or whatever else.
Is there a magnitude of reasons that you attribute that to?
Yeah, of course. Of course. But it's like, I think it's just that thing of, there's a sense, it's like it stems from the sense of pointlessness of it. Yeah. It stems from why are we here? No one knows why they're there. If you ask them in the press, they go, right, we're here to get the exams at the end, right? But that doesn't mean anything really to a lot of people. To a handful of them, it's like, right, okay, I get this, I go to there. There's a logic to this. And like, I know our youngest is in year 8 now. And I know he spends half his time in a lesson looking around going, can we just get through this?
Why do you think it's increasingly being more questioned? Because I reckon 80s, you've got a massive disciplinarian. On 70s, 80s, you get a cane. Then the 90s, my era, we just accepted it. So we were told that's what it is, and we went along with it without questioning too much, just acceptance.
Yeah.
Now it's getting to this stage, a central fugal moment where it's like
Yeah.
really noticeable.
Well, people are articulating it more, aren't they? People are articulating it in music, in everything. People like the rappers that these kids are listening to are talking about the pointlessness of the education system. How I learned
these discussions
more,
like now.
Yeah, I learned more on the road in one summer than I learned in school in 5 years. These are lyrics.
Yeah.
And people are aware of other people just talking it. Like the internet allows you to be aware of so much more. It doesn't help you understand more.
So what do you see happening then if it is becoming more aware, more spoken of, and it's pushing that way, and education's tightening that way? What do you think happens in 20 years' time, or 10, 15, 20?
Well, it becomes divisive, doesn't it? It becomes divisive. It becomes like a cycle of teachers teaching for a couple of years and then bouncing because they're burnt out and going around like that. And more people slip through the cracks. And then people who have more money are already fine. People who have less money are down here anyway. It becomes kind of more extreme. But in amongst that, you got to hold on to the idea. You got to hold on to the idea of hope, of genuine connection between people. There's always, I believe in waves of stuff, right? Or cycles is probably probably a better one. It's just that thing of like, right, everyone can feel it. Everyone can feel the disengagement or the fact that the gap between generations. Some people would say it's always the same. I don't agree. Like I'm the last generation who can fully remember pre-internet. Like I'm not a native, but my kids are native, right? That's the last generation. I'm the last after my generation. It's like, right, no one remembers pre-internet, so it's like, right, I can remember the difference, and I can remember what that felt like, the disengagement and it's, you know, part of it is just natural, but it's the amount of stimulus and the amount of engagement they have in their pockets. Blows anything out the water, blows TV, blows all the music, whatever. Like computer games is a big one for us, like R-rated computer games. It's not even a drop in the ocean to what they've got access to at the drop of a thing. So it's like, right, they don't need anything else. So it's like, right, so that gap, so they can seemingly get further and further away, but no one's asking them what they want to do.
So now we've got YouTubers, we've got TikTokers.
Dude, we sound so pessimistic, man. It's
I'm loving it. I think it's important. Great chats. But yeah, we've got YouTubers, TikTokers, loads of jobs are being replaced, loads of factories are shutting down. We're going into a completely new world. We've got AI coming in. What would you say is a really vital skill for young people to learn while they're at school? Maybe very hard to answer that. But what do you think integral?
I don't know. I can't speak across the board, but I think in terms of making, do you know what I mean? I think in terms of kind of creating stuff. I mean, all these things are tools. I don't get. We were talking about AI before we started recording. It's that thing of like, right, if you're using something to do something, then it's a tool, and if you're using something as a tool, that makes sense. It's when you just get lost in it and just become like sucked into something, and you are literally doing nothing. You're kind of consuming. If you're just doing that, maybe you'll grow out of that and it'll just become something when you have to earn a living or whatever else. But it can kind of trap you in a sense that you don't have to do anything, or there's nothing to do, or I can't do it. But by the same token, it's never been more possible for you to make something out of nothing and share it and make that your living or make that your career. So it's like for every pitfall of what this is, there is a potential excitement. It's just more about, I guess, people being true to themselves, or trying to figure themselves out rather than constantly being something else. They're being so encouraged to be something else, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, this, we're going to sound so old now, but like you look at music, right? You look at music now, and you could, whoever's, let's zoom in on kind of hip hop or rhyming, right? And like artists in that genre now, they're chosen because of a persona, right? But the difference between flows or the music production or anything else, it's just not that great. It's quite in a lane, and it's just where things are now. But it means that, like, right, how are you supposed to stand out if everything, if the goal is to sound like this?
Yeah.
Do you know, how are you supposed to kind of take a risk and everything else? But I got a 17-year-old kid, right? And he'd be sitting here now going, "Shut up, man! Just shut up! Just relax.
Yeah.
Relax. Right?
That's a cool kid.
We're not. Yeah, but we're not. It's like we're not stupid. There are some of us who were stupid, but there were some of you who were stupid as well. There were some stupid teachers then. There's some stupid teachers now. There's some amazing teachers now. There were some amazing teachers then.
Well, that's kind of the question I'm asking there, is that wonderful philosophy in that young lad there, how do we give that hope and that rationality into that young mindset?
You listen.
Yeah.
You listen.
Because I think school's biggest skill for however long is really the vital one, is to retain information. Just remember things.
Well, yeah, that's what it was. It was, but I think now it's about the idea of questioning. To discern, right?
Yeah.
To discern, to be able to look at something and go, right, okay.
Think for yourself.
Yeah, to think exactly. To think for yourself. To go, okay. To think about motivations. Okay, why is this van driving around saying 3.5 million immigrants just the week before an election? Why is it that we're finding out that Facebook employed people on Facebook to create kind of racist propaganda? Yeah. They know this stuff.
Yeah.
So they're questioning stuff already. They're having debates about things that we would never have had debates about, sexuality-wise, gender-wise, equality-wise. And it's like, right, okay, there has to be an element of trust. And I think there's also, even of us who aren't a million miles away from them in terms of age or kind of like culturally, there's still that separation where they need their own kind of trust and things. So it's almost like my job is not to impress anything. It's more just to go, like, look, I love what I do, but what I do is ask you, what do you want to do? Like, will you do something with me, right? And you might enjoy that for that thing, and then maybe you can kind of use that in whatever else you do. That kind of creativity of going, just sharing your ideas, but just you got to, I guess, without that trust, without that kind of going, like, right. I will say, look at this, right? If you see a video online, you're like, right, why has he made that? What's he trying to do? And they're like, I maybe did it. Just that level of, because there's so much. There's almost no time to even analyse what it is. You have to just take it as given. Yeah. It's like kind of true. And it's like, right. So I can speak for our kids. It's like, right, we trust them in a sense of like I know if you see something, you're gonna think about why something's been done. They know that all meanness is fear. They know that anything that is attacking somebody stems from a place where somebody's feeling insecure or kind of feeling put on themselves. But also it's just that sense of like, right, why am I even wasting my time with this? I don't have to be like everybody else. And I think what creativity in the sessions that we kind of do can give you is a sense that, look, there's more. There is stuff that we can do that school hasn't taught you. There is stuff that we can do and we can make that exists outside where your ideas matter. And that's beyond that. You're kind of on your own, as we all are when you kind of go off into the world anyway.
I don't think we've sounded too pessimistic through this conversation.
No, not at all. But also, it's really important. It's really important, I think, with these kind of conversations, because we talked about ourselves a little bit, but we also talked about the state of the world. We don't really know. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's
a good disclaimer.
Yeah. Well, no, but we'd have this chat tomorrow, and it might be very, very different. Yeah. I am a hopeful person, and I'm an excitable person, because I know that ideas and story, which my life revolve around, still feel timeless when I'm in a room, regardless of whether we're on phones and vaping, or whether it was slate and chalk or whatever. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, that's why I get excited. In terms of systemic stuff, I'll happily be used in a discussion, but I'm no like savior or sage.
What, in the Pupils' Voice project that we were doing, what shone through the most for you in the pupils' voices? What were they really expressing and trying to say?
That they've never been asked.
Yeah.
Every single one of them in different degrees of directness. Basically, they'd never been asked.
Right.
What they wanted to do or what they thought of something. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, right, okay, well,
that's wild, isn't it? When you think about it.
It is kind of wild, but you can see
that this is for them.
Yeah. Well, the logic of it makes sense, because if I ask all of you what you want and what you think of it, it could be massively demoralizing to me as the kind of teacher or whatever. Yeah. But like, it's that thing of there are smaller steps that can be massively beneficial. It doesn't necessarily have to be huge changes in one go, but just that sense of it being, we're in this together, fostering that in every way, shape or form, from simple discussion, from asking the question of what you reckon, building up to that where we're actually thinking about interventions or designing the spaces or whatever based on us talking. But just if we're in it together, rather than I'm here for you, do this, get out. if you could just foster that.
Yeah, a friend of mine's daughter was at school. She's in year 7 now.
Yeah.
Lovely girl.
Yeah.
And she just put her hand up and really honestly said to her teacher, like, I don't enjoy this. I'm having a good time. And then the teacher got so butthurt and her ego slapped by it, and then singled her out, shouted at her, put her in front of the whole class, and then every time she comes in now, oh, here's the girl that doesn't like my class. Here's the girl that doesn't like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And such a lovely girl has just turned so upset, shy and timid and inside herself just because she openly and honestly said, this isn't for me, this isn't the one.
Yeah.
And they couldn't have that open, honest discussion. And an adult's ego got hurt too much by it.
But that's a personality thing as well, right? That's like, yeah, that's a real shame as well.
I'm sorry, I'm full of trauma
stories.
stories.
No, I'm just saying, but like, but I guess the thing is like, I don't know if the girl has the strength and the wherewithal to kind of say that. I would hope that the girl has the wherewithal and the strength to realise that to be explained to and talk about why. I think
they'll have that conversation and they'll get through it. But
like, it's that thing of going like, right, if I think this is what I genuinely think now, that what authority is completely it's archaic.
Yeah,
it's archaic in the way it's presented still, because anything you can tell me, I can just go ask my phone. So like,
it makes no sense. Of humanity.
Makes no sense. What the fact you don't know more than me. You know more than me in your mouth, but I can actually ask this in my phone quicker than you can probably say it.
Yeah.
Right. Bam. So authority doesn't make sense. So what have I got? What I've got is, let's work together.
We're human.
We're working towards this.
Yeah.
If we want to look, the first part of this game show is get a good enough mark that you can go on to the next part of the game show, which is sixth form. If you want to get a good enough mark at the end of sixth form to go on to university or go into a job with enough mark to kind of give you an up or a key into something where you could earn a living that's half decent, right? We know we're working towards that. It's stupid. It's archaic. That's the game we're in. Cool. Let's work together.
Yeah.
Let's try and work together and do that.
We really do have to ask that question. What is a teacher's role in the room now? If we've got AI, we've got our phones, we've got some knowledge of humanity in our back pocket, then what can they teach them?
Well, it can't respond, can it? So like, a teacher can respond and a teacher can do the dance with
wholesome, humanistic,
A teacher can spark things between, so it's not just you and that.
Yeah, the
collaboration.
Curious I mean, an adult, we've probably been through a little bit more heartache and we've been through more mistakes and there's so many wholesome attributes and skills we've learned throughout.
Well, think about this, lad. Like, what's a phone AI? What's a phone not? It's not a person.
Yeah.
Okay, so if my strength is the fact that I'm a person, bring a person to the room.
Yeah. Here's how I got through this breakup of mine.
Whatever, I guess, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
And whatever is appropriate,
and also
judge
passion
that.
And everything. I'm just thinking of what I've seen in people before and adults in the room where I've gone, oh, that's the juice. That's the thing for me.
It's a person. Yeah. It's a person.
Whatever it is. Yeah.
It's whoever you are, gauge it how is appropriate, but bring something of yourself to it. Yeah. Because if I see a person, my natural human instinct is to try and connect with that person first.
Humour. I'm just saying loads of words
now.
You
can say, but like, who knows, right?
I'm not saying this is humour and that a broad spectrum for everybody. I'm just thinking of each individual teacher in there.
Yeah.
What could your thing be?
Well, the thing is, if you're being yourself, it will constantly change.
It will, yeah.
So as soon as you think you've got a rule, people will be like, "Oh, it's full of it today."
Yeah.
Just if you're in a, do you know what I mean? I'm not feeling it today, kids. I'm really not.
That's
feeling
a lesson.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
Bring it to. It's like, but you can't do it. You can. We're still going to go through it.
Yeah.
Just I don't know. I think, but then
Yeah.
I
understand entirely what you're saying.
We're outsiders commenting on an inside gig.
Yeah. But we care about kids. We care about young people and what education they're getting. We've got young people in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
I've got very young people in my life.
Yeah.
And there's. I think we need to bring that hope to the table as and when we can.
Yeah.
And I've seen it. I've seen it in your sessions. I've seen it in the schools I've been to. I've seen it in the pushback of teachers. And I think this has been a really helpful conversation for myself and for those people listening.
Well, yeah. I mean, I know what I feel in a room.
Yeah.
And I trust what I feel in a room. So everything I've said is based on what I've felt in a room. But in terms of answers, I'm not an answers guy.
Do
you know what I mean? Like,
but you had a young person, and we'll go in a sec.
Yeah, go.
A young person, who's just left uni, and going into education.
Yeah.
What sort of how would that?
What do you mean?
That conversation.
They're going
into teaching.
Straight into PGCE now.
Yeah. Do you have a word of wisdom? Do you have something, or would you tell them find maybe another route? Is that something you'd?
No, I'd say if you want to be a teacher, and they'll learn really, really quickly because PGCE will be vocational, right? So they'll be in the placement.
Yeah.
They'll learn really quickly what it is.
Okay.
And you'll see really quickly that it's no duck walk whatsoever.
Yeah.
So it's like, right, okay. So what are you going to do? What are you going to bring to it that isn't just, you
have to know it's a lifestyle, really.
Yeah, so you're not just what's gone before. It's like, right, what are you going to bring of yourself to it that is uniquely you? And if you are uniquely you, the students will respond. They won't all love you, but they will respond to a person.
Beautiful. Yeah. Okay, man. I think we go in. Let's
Shot me! I can't believe you let me talk that long about something.
Now, go and help.
I'm not going to say that. You're saying that. Look. I can't believe you let me talk so long about flipping stuff.
Mate, well, we're gonna add something to these young lives right now. That's what I want to do. Do our socks off, mate. But they love you here. So,
wicked.
Dude, where can people find your new book that you've got?
All right,
that's how you finish your podcast, isn't it?
Rock and roll. www.bearstories.org.
And to be fair, that is a young lad just going through his young life, really. But there's a lot in education in there, isn't there?
Yeah, that's about one boy's journey through the school system. Yes, it is.
Yeah, mate, beautiful.
Wicked.
Well, mate, thank you for being here.
Nice one, Mikey.
Guys, thank you for being here. You've been a part of the Old Farm Bus, Back of the Bus Sessions podcast. I'll leave you on this. Always do, always will. Just be nice to one another, you beautiful set of buggers. That is what it's all about.